Hello everyone, and welcome to the Lagoon. It's Gill-boy here, and today we're going to discuss Longlegs. So get comfy, grab you a drink, and get all relaxed in the Lagoon as we prepare to discuss a great film. Now, Longlegs is a horror mystery film that is similar in some ways to Seven and The Silence of the Lambs. The film is directed by Oz Perkins, who is, a fun fact, the son of Anthony Perkins, who played Norman Bates from the 1960s classic Psycho. It stars Makia Monroe as the FBI agent who is trying to track down and stop the satanic serial killer Longlegs, who is played by Nicolas Cage. Now, I think it's best to go into this film blind. The less said about its plot is the better, honestly. And in my opinion, this is Nicolas Cage's best performance. And he plays one of the most disturbing, creepy portrayals of a serial killer that I've ever seen in a movie. He's really unrecognizable and is really grotesque and hard to look at as well as watch. Now, those who follow our Lord Cage will be happy to see him in his true form, for he is finally revealing himself on how he truly is, and his ways, and his face. Now, enough of those joking memes aside, as Nicolas Cage is everyone, because I have much to say about this movie. This is one of those movies where if you miss something, you're probably need to go back and watch that again, or you might not know what's going on. But in saying that, I will give a non-spoiler review first, because I know a lot of people don't like spoilers. I myself don't, but I know that some of you do love spoilers. So in this video, there will be a non-spoiler review and a spoiler review, as they will for the next review films that I do. So, don't worry though, I'm going to tell you when to stop watching this video if you don't want spoilers, and then if you don't care about spoilers, then obviously, you can just watch the whole thing. So, I just want to say though, that I think a lot of the mysticism and the magic of this film will be completely destroyed and lost if you know too much about the plot or what Longlegs himself looked like and who is the villain of the film. So in saying that, we will now start the non-spoiler review. So Longlegs is basically a modern-day classic, okay? It's a slow burn that relies on its perfect atmospheric cinematography. Andreas Orochi, sorry if I butchered your last name, but you have now solidified yourself as a master of cinema with such beautiful, dreary shots. Oz Perkins' direction is superb, and every actor gives a perfect, unforgettable performance. This movie made me feel like I needed to pray a rosary and take a bath in the holy water, because the occult themes in this story only enhance its unsettling tone and vibes and its aesthetic, and I can see it just gaining a massive cult following and will be talked about for years to come. So I give Longlegs a 10 out of 10 and highly recommend it to any horror fan as well as any Nicolas Cage fan. So go see it. Alright, so that's pretty much the end of my non-spoiler review. So now would be a good time to pause this video, go buy yourself a ticket, go watch it, and then come meet me back at the Lagoon so we can continue to discuss. Now if you don't care about that, then I guess keep watching. Alright, so now here is my spoiler review of Longlegs. Now you've been warned, and I truly hope you watch this masterpiece before you watch the rest of this video, so that way you can properly enjoy the film. So now, let's discuss the classic known as Longlegs. Alright, so first of all, I just want to say that I loved how the movie started with a Mark Bolan quote from his time as T-Rex. If you don't know who that is, here he is here. Phenomenal album. It's also 10 out of 10. I'm sure Longlegs himself would agree with me. So if you haven't listened to this album, I suggest you do. I know some of the music from this album is played, as well as from his other album known as Electric Warrior, which is also a great album, and I'm sure you should check it out and watch it, and Longlegs would agree with me on all of that. So that being said, starts off with a Mark Bolan quote that is presented on an 8mm camera. Now what's so cool about this is that the 8mm camera is only used for flashback sequences or some of the more kind of jump scare horror elements from that film. And then of course, it slowly pans out into a normal camera. So the camera shift in this film is phenomenal, right? It's just it's perfect. So I don't I cannot praise it enough. Okay, as someone who is into film and a filmmaker myself, this film is inspiring. Okay, it shows you the level of creativity you can show and storytell with different lenses and angles. So enough about all that kind of nerdy stuff. Let's talk about the performances. So Maika Monroe is phenomenal as Lee Harker. When you're first introduced to her character, she kind of comes off introverted, but as she starts dialoguing with some of the other characters like Agent Carter and her mother, who is, if I'm not mistaken, played by Alicia, what's her name? Alicia Will, I think, yes. So she's played by Alicia Will, her mom, and her performance as like the crazy religious psycho-Catholic hoarder is also unforgettable. But Maika Monroe's character, you can clearly tell as the story progresses between her mother and Agent Carter that she has autism. And another really cool aspect that they incorporate into this film, and this may sound kind of ridiculous, but I promise you it's not, she is partially psychic, or as they say, highly attuned. Now, as I said, this may sound kind of like B-movie territory, but it is presented in a very unique, creative way, to where it's not necessarily breaking of reality, because that's one thing of this film that I love, is that it is very grounded. Like, it feels like these things could happen. I mean, just look at the serial killers from California. Charles Manson, what's his name? Hang on. It was very similar to Richard Ramirez. So, Maika Monroe's character, Lee Harker, is basically assigned this case by the Federal Bureau of Investigation. The FBI assigns her this case because they, well, we've done your psychic test readings and you've passed it 8 times. And then she's like, well, I've also failed it 8 times. So they're like, well, we digress. You're highly intuitive if you don't want to accept that you're psychic, But really, I think she's kind of weaponizing her autism in a way to where she can track down and stop this sick bastard, right? So she's got this case, right? And it's very clear that she's able to kind of figure out his codes and coding and stuff, right? Because he's Longlegs is a combination, I would say, of the Zodiac Killer, Richard Ramirez, and Charles Manson, right? And so he, somehow, and we'll discuss this in great detail here in a moment, but somehow he's able to get people to kill themselves. Like, he himself, that's what's so fascinating about this character, is he himself has never killed a single person. But somehow he's able to influence these people to kill their whole family. And it always takes place on their birthday. And it's like 9 consecutive days to the 14th birthday. And then you add up all this numbers with the occult, and it equals all this satanic stuff. And it's really hardcore and, metal, right? So, Nicolas Cage, right? Longlegs. If I had to describe what he looked like, if you're familiar with The Mask, the Jim Carrey The final villain of that film when he's got the mask. Now you take that face, mix it with Kathy Bates and an albino, satanic, you know, pedophile-looking guy, and that's Nicolas Cage, right? He almost looks like a doll himself. So, what he essentially does is he is a doll maker. You know, they even say that in the film, like, and then the doll maker came, Mr. Longlegs, dun dun dun, right? So he's a Satanist that worships the devil, and he carves these porcelain, these lifelike porcelain dolls of the children that he wants to offer up to Lucifer for a satanic sacrifice, right? And he's so well, like the dolls look real that, you know, he probably, if, you know, could have applied himself and maybe worked at, you know, life doll corporations, but instead, you know, he wants to serve the devil, so he doesn't do that. So what he does is he takes like this kind of like onyx sphere, and you know, there's a lot of occult significance in that, which we won't go into because that could be its own video. But he takes this onyx sphere, right, and he uses black magic to like hex and, you know, curse it, so the, you know, the devil will have dominion over it, and then he places that orb inside of the doll's brain, right, or it's supposed to be its brain, and then he'll have his groupie, his little minions like Charles Manson had, and they'll dress them up as nuns or priests or whatever, and they'll knock on the door, and they're like, "You've been selected by the church. We're here to give you a, you know, a birthday gift. Happy birthday!" And then they'll bring this doll in, right? And then all of a sudden, this will allow the devil to then possess and oppress and infest the house and get everybody to, you know, kill all of each other and start acting all sinful and evil, you know, and they'll kill each other. And it's all a satanic ritual to offer this up to the devil. And there's a phenomenal scene when they finally find one of these dolls and they send it to the coroner because, you know, they're like, well, this doll looks so realistic, maybe it's part human and all this stuff. And then, you know, that's shot down by the coroner, and he's like, look at this little orb thing. He goes, I could have sworn I heard it was either his wife or someone that was close to him. I apologize, there's a lot going on in this film, so I don't necessarily remember 100% the dialogue. But he basically insinuates that while he was working and studying this in the morgue, that this orb sounded like the voice of someone he knew and was messing with him. And you can kind of tell he's just like infatuated with the doll, like he's kind of like giddy. So it's real creepy. You can tell like, oh, this is some demonic stuff here, right? But of course, you know, this stuff's called supernatural for a reason, because the supernatural stuff doesn't always happen. So of course, Agent Carter's just like, oh, there ain't no black magic voodoo nonsense, you know, he's just a man, a serial killer. But that's pretty much Nicolas Cage's character's MO. Mr. Longlegs is, he is basically a failed 70s looking glam rock frontman artist that worships Satan and sculpts these dolls that he then hexes and curses, and then figures out all the occult symbologies of 9 days for their 14th birthday, because it all adds up to 666. You know, he's like super metal going through that phase, but truly thinks that he's doing the devil's work, which he is, as you watch the film. And another really cool element that they hid from the marketing, you know, and I just want to say that the marketing in this film was phenomenal. You know, I've pretty much watched a majority of the trailers, watched some reviews and stuff, and I will also have to say, as I know others have said, that this was definitely not the movie that I thought it was, or that you think it is going in, and that's a good thing though. So don't be upset when it starts trying to show you like the mystical, you know, psychic, paranormal aspects, because it really does only enhance the film. And as I've said, this is very grounded, because it does feel like this could happen. You know, there are people who worship the devil and do want to hurt people. There are serial killers like Richard Ramirez and John Wayne Gacy, and stuff like that, who do unspeakable things to children and to people, and so it's very, very believable. But of course, this movie goes with the idea that, all this stuff is real. So I think the biggest spoiler of this whole film is that the devil, Lucifer himself, is the main villain. And uh, it's it's just something that you have to just see, because it's just so, the level of dread that builds up, it's so intense, and then it just bam, it explodes into its third act of just total pandemonium of, satanic violence and all that stuff. And speaking on all the occult symbolism and stuff like that, I have to say another thing that I really appreciated about this film was that it was respectful to Catholicism, to Christianity, to Satanism, to the things in the occult. A lot of movies nowadays take these subject matters and they either make fun of them, or they don't necessarily understand the belief system, so it comes off as fantastical or ridiculous to those of us who might believe, especially to those that don't believe, obviously. But what I'm trying to say is that this is done in such a way to where the people who wrote this story were knowledgeable on the occult, Catholicism, theology, religion, all these mystical practices, so that way when it's presented in the film, it truly is disturbing. It truly is scary. And it is something that will definitely stay with you, I'm sure, for the rest of your life, as it has, as it will for me. Now, I'm going to discuss a theory that I kind of have about Longlegs himself. And as you watch the film, there's like one flashback sequence with him when he's kind of younger, per se, and he's kind of like I said, he looks like a glam rock artist, right? Like a hair metal guy, like something from like Poison or Rat or something like that. But and then obviously Mark Bolan, T-Rex, Tyrannosaurus Rex. He's even got a replica of that hat from that album cover I showed you, and you can notice it hanging up on the wall. And he's even kind of got all this glam rock kind of like Kiss outfit stuff too. So he's a very interesting character, and you can kind of see his psychology in this, because it's almost like as you see him now in the modern time, it's like he's added prosthetics to his face to be a doll, because he's like, okay, well, I will allow Satan to possess this, and he can possess me. And my theory is, and I'm sure others can kind of see this too, it's almost as if he is Satan himself. The scene where she finally goes and is told to go talk to her mother by Agent Carter. Side note, that could be an H.P. Lovecraft reference of Randolph Carter, who was, a student of the occult and all that stuff. So I just felt like that was a little nod. If not, then, I'm going to read into it. Leave me alone. But what I'm trying to say is Agent Carter tells Lee Harker to go talk to her mother and find out why she put in this police report when she was a 9-year-old girl. And it, solidifies that first 8mm scene at the beginning of the film was her as a young girl meeting Longlegs. So it confirms that, okay, so she's had this guy in her life for a while, right? But because of the trauma, she doesn't remember it. And also because of the demonic manipulation, she also doesn't remember it. And when she goes and talks to her mother and finally confronts her, she goes upstairs and finds this old photograph of him, and it had this jump scare, right? And man, it got me. I was the only one that screamed in the theater. It was embarrassing. But it definitely got me, that one. And they arrest him, right? Because they have proof of who he is now, and they're like, well, she's psychic, so we know it's true. But that scene with Nick Cage in the interrogation room, man, that is some of the best acting I've ever seen in my life. The prosthetic makeup looks real. Like, he's unrecognizable. The only way you can really kind of tell it's Nick Cage is obviously his voice, his lips, and his eyes. Outside of that, he's unrecognizable. But there's a scene in that part of that movie, where it's like he flips his head right with his hair, and you see his eye, and his eye just looks so demonic. So it's almost like you're looking at the devil. Like, you really truly feel like you're in the presence of true evil when he's on screen. Like, and it's like you want to look away, but you can't, you know. And it's just so, like, the more and more, like, I've seen it twice now, and the second time I watched it, it's just like, man, I wanna know so much more about his psychology, and you can kind of see how he views the world and by the things that he says and the things he does. I mean, it is completely nightmare fuel, right? And so we start moving into the third act now, and we realize that the big twist ending, of course, is that the Lee Harker's mom is the groupie of Longlegs. And in fact, he was actually living in their house in the basement, you know, and they keep talking about Mr. Downstairs, which is the devil, but it's also, you know, he lives downstairs. So, like I'm saying, my theory is he's just kind of like the devil. And he says something similar to what Richard Ramirez said, is like, you think you've got me, I'll be free now. You know, and he like kills himself, which is, you know, sacrament in Satanism. And so the idea is that he kills himself, and now he'll be free, and be able to serve the devil more freer and cause more chaos and death and destruction. It's a very disturbing scene, and makes the third act even more frightening when you realize that it was the mother who was the groupie, and they keep repeating over and over, well, you were allowed to grow up, you know, like, I made this deal, so if I killed another child, you would be able to live, right? And so I've had to go out and do all of this because, you know, I love the devil now, and, you know, the sacrilegious symbolism of this movie is very much like an onion, and you can dissect it. For example, you could look at Longlegs, you know, Nicolas Cage's character, as the Christ figure, as the new Adam, right? As we learn in Catholic theology. And then, of course, the mom, Alicia's character, is the Blessed Virgin Mary, you know, the new Eve. And together, they bring gifts of the gospel, per se, from the church, per se, to these people, and they offer them up to Satan, you know, instead of God. And she carries the, you know, the dolls. And so you could, like I said, it's like an onion. You could really delve deep into the theology, and to the blasphemy, and to the symbolism of this film. Now, speaking of the symbolism, there is a lot of subliminal messaging in the film, and what I mean about that is Illuminati. No, I'm just kidding. What I mean about that is, like, let's say I'm giving this movie review right here, right? And you've seen this shadow since I've been doing the video, right? But then all of a sudden it moves, right? And then when you see that it moves, you see that it's got horns and a robe, and it's, you know, the devil. So stuff like that happens, and it starts happening early on in the film. And if your vision's maybe not that good, or you may not, you know, have the eye for it, because this is very much an atmospheric horror film. So if you're not used to those kind of films, you might not really be paying too much attention to the background. But you'll notice it starts in the first act, and it starts ramping up as we go into the second act. And by the third act, it's almost hard not to see the devil. But like, he'll just be in the background, and it's just so scary. Like the final scene of the third act, when they go in the house to try to stop the mom from killing the kid, she closes the door, and when she closes the door, on the mirror on the door, you see the devil standing there. You know, so it's like, it's too late. The devil's already there, kind of thing. He's already got their souls. So it's got this really creepy, you know, terrifying build-up from all of this. And so that leads us into more or less the ending of the film, the third act of the film. And you know, Lee Harker goes in to confront her mother, and we see the dolls already been unveiled and sitting on the couch and all this stuff, and Agent Carter and his wife and daughter are acting all creepy, and the mom, it's like, he doesn't even, like, Agent Carter doesn't even realize that that's Lee Harker's mom. It's like his mind's been wiped, you know. It's so creepy, you know. It's like mind control, like creepy demonic stuff. And she pulls out her gun after he starts stabbing her in the kitchen, and then he comes out to stab her, and she shoots him twice, right? Or maybe 3 times. But I'm pretty sure it's at least 2 to 3 times, right? And the kind of gun she has, right, has 6 bullets. And then, of course, the mom gets up and is like, no, for Satan, we've got to do this. And so she just, one-shots her mom, shoots her in her face. Blood goes everywhere. And then she's like, all right, bet, it's time to blow up this, screw you, Satan. I'm going to shoot your little orb so you can't affect this family, right? I still got like 2 bullets left. She goes to pull the trigger and the gun won't fire. And she keeps trying to shoot it. And then she's like, you know what, we need to just get out of here. And then, her eyes kind of look to the left and to the right. And it's almost like you can tell, like she kind of can hear a voice, right? Because that's what they've already kind of established in this movie, is that this little orb that the devil's in, it starts talking to you, it starts messing with you, it starts wiping your mind. It's Lucifer fucking with you, basically. And so he, you tell it's almost like she's thinking about something. You see a tear fall down her eye, and it kind of plays with the idea that they've been setting up in the film of, you got to live, and the only way for you to get to have lived, if you don't want that child to die, you have to offer up another child. So it kind of sets up this idea, or at least implies, that this is just going to continue. She's now going to be the servant of Satan and make dolls and kill another child so that Agent Carter's daughter will survive. It's also possible, too, if you want to look at it as, oh, no, she got out of the house in time. But this being a horror movie, and with what the dialogue of the script implies, that this is what happens, right? It's basically the implication of the film. And so it's very disturbing, very creepy, and it only enhances the fact when it ends with a T-Rex song that makes you feel like you want to dance and go out and live your life after you just watch some really disturbing, twisted stuff. So, as I've stated earlier, Longlegs is a modern-day classic. It's 10 out of 10. I think people will be talking about this movie for a long, long time. And I really hope you enjoyed it. If you did not enjoy the film and you thought it was stupid and a waste of time, please comment below and tell me why you thought it wasn't great. Because I can honestly see this movie being one of those where you either like it or you don't, right? But it seems so far from the responses in the theater that I've seen that a majority of people love this. They think it's amazing. But I can see if you're really kind of sensitive to these type of satanic horror films, that you would just nope on out of this movie. It is very, very, very scary. It's very much will stay with you. And what I like about it is that it allows you to kind of think about all the characters, like backstory, their motivations, that kind of stuff. It's a very immersive, atmospheric experience. 10 out of 10. And it's been stated earlier by Nicolas Cage himself that, he's only got about 2 to 3 more movies left in him. I know he had that movie about the dreams, and I think one other movie, and I know he's going to be playing Spider-Man. So this is either going to be one of his final films, if not his last actual film, because if I'm not mistaken, the Spider-Man thing where he's playing Spider-Man is going to be a TV show, like the Spider-Man Noir thing. And even at the end of this film, before it cuts to the credit scene, they show you one more scene with Nicolas Cage, and he literally, blows you a kiss and all that. So it feels like a goodbye, So this would be a perfect film for him to go out on. And if it's not, which I hope it's not, because the more Cage the better in my opinion. But if I think he was going to go out on a movie, this is what it would be. But as we know, he's still going to grace us with his presence as a Spider-Man. So we have that to look forward to. So just one more thing I want to comment before we get done with this review, because I know it's kind of dragging on. But like I said, I could probably make this an hour-long video because there's just so much to dissect theologically, uh, technical wise, on how it's shot and plot development, all that stuff. I mean, this could be like a 2-hour video, but I'm gonna try to keep it under 40 minutes for you here. So I just want to comment on some stuff in case you've checked out other spoiler reviews and seen all the trailers. There is violence in this film. There is gore. But some of the reviewers that I've seen have tried to make this like it's a slasher film, like Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, Saw. It's not a torture porn film, right? There is gore and there is violence, and when it is, it's very gruesome and visceral, but it only serves to enhance the plot. So it is accurate to call this a horror mystery that in its third act turns into a complete occult horror supernatural film, to where Lucifer is really just the big bad, and it's quite something to behold. So I hope that you go see it. I hope that you enjoy it. If you did enjoy it, leave a like on the video. If you didn't enjoy it, still leave a like on the video and comment and tell me why, and then maybe we can discuss why you didn't like it. But I really hope that you go see this film, because I think it's definitely going to be one we're still talking about in 10 years. I know I'm definitely going to be watching it every October once I'm able to physically own it. So, that being said, Longlegs, 10 out of 10, go see it. Now, before I get off, I just want to discuss the future of the channel. I'm still going to be doing Spooky Fam nights every Saturday night on the live streams where we watch old school horror films. Unfortunately, I won't be there this Saturday, so if you've missed me, you have this video to watch, and hopefully you go watch Longlegs before you watch the Spooky Fam stream. Now, as far as this channel goes, here at the Lagoon, I will be reviewing every big major horror movie that comes out this year. Unfortunately, this channel just started, so I wasn't able to review the first Omen, the new Omen movie that came out this year. So that will probably be either my next video or a video after the next one I do, because I also plan to review old school movies like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, The Brides of Dracula, the Hammer horror, Curse of Frankenstein kind of films, and then also the kind of films that we present to you all on Saturday night streams. I also plan to do some video game streams, but they will primarily be horror video games, so I will review those and also stream them play, and I may give some guides on those games depending on which one. So anyways, there's lots to come, so I hope that you have enjoyed your stay here at the Lagoon, and I hope that you continue to come to the Lagoon and discuss all things horror, noir, science fiction. Now, the one thing I want you all to take away from this review and this video and the movie Longlegs is this: do not, on your birthday, accept any porcelain doll from anyone, because I have always thought that porcelain dolls came from Satan, and this movie only confirms it 100 times over. So whatever you do, if you're not yet 14 or 9 years old or whatever, don't receive any porcelain doll to anyone. But still listen to T-Rex, because that's a great band. Mark Bolan's a legend, and it was great to see him incorporated into this film, and I hope it opens up the newer generations to his music and to this kind of horror. So anyways, that's it for your boy Gill-boy. I'm gonna go and swim in the lagoon and kind of cool off in this summer heat. So I hope you all enjoyed Longlegs, and I hope you all enjoyed your stay at the Lagoon. Until next time, stay spooky. Peace.